with, and because I'm an optimist through and through, what that looks like in terms of positive change and how we can potentially future-proof our school and the market. So those are my points for discussion today. I am going to just briefly tell you where I work, because you may or may not have heard of Abbots Hill School. Abbots Hill School is located in Hertfordshire on 76 acres. It's a beautiful site, and the heritage there runs deep. We are based in John Dickinson's house. He was one of the leaders in paper mills in the 1800s in Apsley, and actually was close friends with Charles Dickens. And there are rumors that Abbot Hill is Bleak House. So there's lots of like little bits and nuances in history there that I love. But we also happen to be an excellent girls' school, ISI rated this year. We've had an outstanding rating from Ofsted for our co-ed nursery, and we've just been reviewed by Good Schools Guide. So that's my plug of for Abbot Hill. Ultimately, when I am talking to you today, I want you to think about your own school and think of it in this kind of way. So I've created a little icebreaker to get us going, because I want you to be thinking about your school at the same time that I'm talking to you about mine. And so this is something that I find it's very difficult. If I were speaking to you face to face, doing an icebreaker, or pausing so you could laugh at my jokes, which I have to say I miss. I need some artificial laughter inserted in so that I can make sure everyone's enjoying what I'm saying. It's quite lonely doing that on your own. I'm sure everyone finds that when they're presenting on Zoom. But I'd like us to use the chat function on our Zoom call. So if you could find the way, oops, I won't show you here. I think up on the top there, to bring your chat function up on your screen. I'd like everyone to just think a little bit about their school, and I'm skipping ahead slightly, but think about what your virtual tours might be like at the moment, since we, none of us can have people on site for a normal open event. If there were 3 things about your school that you wanted to get across in a virtual event. So I don't want to give you tons of examples because I want you to think of your own, but is it listening to your head speak? Is it a fantastic facility you have? Is it a teacher that absolutely sells the school? Whatever those 3 things are that you just think, actually, I really want that to come through in my messaging, and I want people to know that when they come to the school, that's what they'll get. We're going to all use the chat at the exact same time. So the idea behind this is that no one feels like they're getting someone else's idea. So when I say go, I'd like you to type in just one of those 3 key things that you'd like to get across, those 3 messages. So just pick one and type that in. And then at the end, we can review that, but this is really just to get you really thinking about what your school has to offer. So if you're all ready to do that, it's a bit tricky because I can't actually see your faces, but, and we just click go. I'm just going to say go, and everyone just start entering in and press enter and submit to the chat those things that oh, fantastic. People are doing it already. Fab. Absolutely. Great. So some of these are a bit easier to try and explain virtually than others. And you can see that as you're scrolling through as well. It's a good way of getting all of your teaching staff to think about, how can we, show happy pupils? Well, maybe that's simple. Maybe that's a few images and some, nice comments. Maybe that's actually having pupils live on your open day. Something that might be slightly more difficult to express. Fantastic programs, lots of opportunities. What kinds of opportunities, how can we really dig into that and really show some of that? So really useful here, I think. Anyway, but ultimately for you to look at and think, how can what we're talking about today be applied to your school? And ultimately, how does that make your job easier? Because once you can narrow down what you really want to say, I think that helps with the messaging so much. So that's who we are. nice to know a bit more about you. In the way that I kind of wrote this, I just put a slide up. I thought we'll talk about learning to pivot. And then at the end of each slide, I'll just say, if you've got some comments or things that you'd like to add to that, go ahead and pop those in. And then at the very end, depending on time, we can go through some of those and really draw on any comments that people have or questions. So ultimately, we've got that chat there as a way of storing our notes as well. So pivoting is something that I hear about a lot. I don't know about you, but I think, hearing people say, yes, you've got to be able to, accept change, embrace it, enjoy it, all these things that we're trying to teach our own children and, our pupils, it's affecting us, we're right in the thick of it. So, I was speaking with the head of my school, Catherine Gorman, and I was showing her this slide, and we just were laughing about the fact that, before COVID, Zoom and Loom were just words that we used to talk about phonics and the oo sound. Suddenly now they're software solutions. They're part of our effective teaching and learning. If you're not using Zoom, and you're using something else, what are you using? All these kinds of conversations that last year, weren't necessarily on our radar. That this is a key part of pivoting, is being able to stay up to date with all of the new software solutions and digital solutions that there are out there to keep us ahead of the curve in terms of communication. But, what opportunities are there for us ahead? Is anyone looking beyond where we are right now to think about what challenges are coming, forward and towards us? I think there's another talk in the afternoon around social media. And I always think, yes, at the moment, our parents are using Facebook, but what are they going to be using in 5 years' time? Because our current parent demographic is one of the last age categories that's using Facebook. Most people now are they're not using it. They're perhaps not even registering for it. So what's the next way that we can be communicating with people? We need to be thinking about that as well. So I think that, managing that change in a positive way and expecting that change is coming rather than being shocked by it is a real key way of driving good marketing. If you have any other thoughts around that and you want to just plug those into the chat right now, I'm happy for you to do that. I won't pull that up and have a look at it till after, so you can use it as a kind of notes to either send me a direct message, which we can talk about at another time, or, going forward, we can do a group chat at the end. Right. So I think this is actually the crux of when I was writing my blog that Alicia read, which was about virtual events, because I think I was feeling that moment of, okay, we've got another virtual open event. What can we do with that to make it engaging and creative? And, how can we avoid this dreaded Zoom fatigue, which, we're all facing every day. I've got 2 children upstairs on different Zoom calls. I'm on a Zoom call, everyone's doing it. How can we make them really creative? What's the cost involved? Are we actually making a savings versus having a normal open event? Is there a cost savings here that we could be talking about, or a different way of using those funds? Who will attend? We ran open events in September, and we've got another one, a whole school open event in March. Am I expecting the same audience? Am I hoping that that's going to be slightly different? What can I say to them? What kind of messaging can I get out there to get them to come and join us, and also reassure them that they're going to learn something new? And then what also is your follow-up strategy? So say your attendance was really high. Did you get in touch with people straight away with a Google form and find out, or SurveyMonkey, why they came along to the event, what they're expecting after the event? This is the key here is there any way we can get them on site? Are you still running some sort of private tour? Are you not allowing people in buildings, but maybe doing, obviously at the moment we're in a lockdown and that's not really relevant, but going, in a wider thought process around the way your open events are looking, can you offer some kind of bespoke tours alongside? And ultimately, I think the last question there, what does normal look like in the future? I don't know about you, but in some ways, virtual events are creating a bit of a balance for us. we might run our virtual event at the same time as a competitor, which would have been a massive issue. But if we're now offering it as a virtual event and we're recording it, is there scope to say, we're sorry that we didn't see you there, but we'd like to send you this recording, anyway, and try and just get in front of people where you may have had a missed opportunity if you weren't first on their list. So really thinking about, at first getting people to the event and then what it looks like. I use the icebreaker in the beginning of getting everyone to submit a question at the same time. There's a lot of research around doing things like unofficial starts. So having a virtual event that starts at 10 o'clock, but at 9:50, you open the Zoom call early and allow people to join in. And then you might put a few questions in the chat, getting people thinking about what they're excited about in the day, and then being able to learn from that unofficial chat at the beginning of a session. We were all very good in this session, and we were on mute waiting for Alicia to say it's time to start. But if we wanted to use that as a way of kind of driving that a bit of a conversation there. It's about being creative in how we do that. I've got lots of ideas on icebreakers, and like to use all of our events as little guinea pigs to see how people get on with interacting. So would love to know more about yours if you have any. Right. So I start this slide with marketing hats for everyone. And this is something that I think has been really key for our school this year, and certainly something that was driving some of our inset days. Rachel Hadley-Leonard, who's on the call later today, actually came and spoke with our school about marketing and how the whole school can be involved in marketing. And actually, I think thinking even about virtual events, parents' consultations and things like that, the one-to-one experience that you may be having on screen with a teacher might be the only experience that you have with your school this year. And how can you ensure that the teaching staff are marketing the school in the same way that you might? Now, some of the things that we've talked about with this are as small as having a marketing aspect to your induction for new employees. So that's something that we've just started doing. Is I've got a very brief 20 minutes with new employees to talk to them about the messaging of the school, our vision, and how, I think that, we just have a conversation about how we each play a part in getting our message out there. So I do that with people from facilities who are, or the maintenance staff, and then with, new heads of departments, and everyone in between, basically. So I really feel strongly that in order for everyone to market the school, we all have to be telling the same story. And that's part of our employee experience as well. So, making sure that we're really understanding our parents and the pupils' journey through the school, and that we all see where we all play a part within that. Again, if you've got any comments that you'd like to add on that, I'd be happy to talk about that later, because I find how people feel about integrating their staff into the marketing is really interesting to me. Ultimately, we're all marketers, and it might not be the first thing in your teaching staff's mind, but they definitely are thinking about it, because they obviously are, should be happy to be working at your school and happy to get that message across to parents that the pupils there are supported and looked after and are, being stretched, etc. Right. So because I'm annoyingly optimistic and I can't help but find positives in things, what I actually realized this year, as I was sat at home trying to, get a hold of people over Zoom and Outlook and etc., is that we have an opportunity at the moment to really future-proof our marketing in the way we look at the school, from our messaging to, our strategy. And I think that what this has allowed us to do is to stop and look at every bit of our curriculum and how we deliver it, but also how marketing and admissions tell people about how we deliver what we do. And are we speaking to people in the right way? Are we communicating with them in the right way? A lot of marketing for me at the moment is about reputation building for the school. How are we telling everyone about us? If we're using old school marketing methods that are difficult to measure, do we really know who we're getting in front of? I read a really interesting piece about a woman who was saying that actually she wasn't sure who was really reading what her her ads and papers or not, or how they were finding the school, because they all just wrote word of mouth. And she was saying, well, that's great, but where, how, how do we find out any further? And actually what came about was someone said word of mouth, and then later on they picked up the phone and said, when you said word of mouth, what did you mean? And they said, well, actually, I think I saw you on Facebook. So it turned out to be a Facebook ad that was the real way that the message had initially been put out, that this, nursery existed. So I think it's an interesting one to try and think, okay, how do we future-proof what we're doing now? And I think I referenced that before, thinking about the way we communicate with our parents. In a social setting, it might be, changing from Facebook to Instagram. In the future, is that going to be TikTok? Is anyone here using Discord? My son is 14, same as Alicia's, and Discord is the way he talks to his friends. It's a way of talking about gaming, but he also says that there's educational chats on there. I mean, I didn't even know it existed. So it's constantly, I find, the future proofing aspect is always looking at our strategies and making sure that we're auditing them and that they're still working in the right way to be effective. So I don't know if anyone else has any other thoughts around that, or perhaps have any other kind of new forms of social coming up in the world. Has anyone here used TikTok, or has anyone been creative with the way that they're using Instagram? Are you doing Instagram Live, for example? One of the things and one of the ways that I try to keep fresh with our marketing is I've created a marketing club for year 10 at our school. And the pupils come in and they tell me, what they think a brand looks like. So they're very quick to say, they understand that Disney is a brand, or that they understand that Coca-Cola is a brand. But when I say, well, what about us? What about Abbott's Hill? They kind of go, oh no, I guess, yes, no, that is a brand. And I was like, right. So thinking about that, and then finding out, well, okay, if you think that you want to go to our school, how do we get that message out there? That
permission to leave me with the computer.
Oh, sorry. So I think we've somehow broken into someone else's conversation there. Anyway, so if you think about ways that you can speak to your target audience, and that might be the pupils at your school who are now making the decisions about where they want to go, how are you speaking with them, and how are you finding out the best way to communicate with them? One of the things that I want to do is have our marketing club, the year 10 pupils, come and talk to our open day in a small session, just explaining our clan system. So just a way of getting them to get in front of the potential pupils and their parents, and just kind of show that we've got this really dynamic group of girls who are very confident and are very happy to engage with people, and also explain why they love going to the school. So it kind of works in all favors, I think. I've got 8 minutes left, and I've got a couple of slides that I had created. My sister also works in school marketing, and she said that she found them really useful when we've talked in the past. She's a teacher. So I gave just a quick example here for you to take, which is an example of a parent journey. So I don't know if you use this anyway, but I think in my B2B life, we talked about there being an awareness phase, consideration, a purchase, and then a kind of a longer lasting kind of celebratory role. And in parenting, in a typical buyer journey, that's what that looks like. And in a parent journey, it's the awareness, consideration. At what point do they enroll in the school, and then how long you can retain them? And so the little equal sign at the end, and then the megaphone just shows that, actually winning the parents and the pupils is something that allows you to take their very first experiences at the school and go all the way through to the end when they become your biggest advocates and they're telling people. And that's when that word of mouth marketing is real, is when your parents are actually coming through and telling their family, their friends about their positive experience at their school, and the pupils are doing the same. Their next steps in education are doing the same. So it's just fueling a much bigger picture around messaging. And then the final slide that I have here is just something that I thought is quite useful when you're thinking about future-proofing and virtual versions, and something that I've been working quite closely with this year, which is all of the various customer touch points. So it might be, you could call it parent touch points there, or pupil touch points, but to gain recruitment and retention. So filling that funnel and then keeping it positive right through to the end. That might be, something like an open event where you actually just look at it and think, so I use a traffic light system with the senior leadership team, and ask them, what went well with the event, what do they think goes well. We look at the number from inquiry to who have signed up for the event, to who's actually attended, and then what the next steps are after. And just by measuring those little moments there, you're able to see if the event is a green, it's a good event, it's something that works very well as a touch point, or if it's an amber or red and maybe needs a bit of work, maybe actually needs you to pick up the phone and speak to someone who decided not to go further with your school choices because for whatever reason. But by even just picking up the phone and saying, I'm aware that you didn't sign on to the school, but I'd be interested to know why, might help you really pick apart why those events need work. And that's, something like registration, even the assessment process, which is quite a key touch point. What goes well with that, and do you have a high conversion rate to enrollment after, or is there work to be done there? So I guess I would just wanted to end on a couple of what I think are positive moments in marketing, those really pivotal decision-making points, and COVID or not, these are the things that we're kind of thinking about all the time. So I think I've got 5 minutes left for any questions. I don't know if anyone wants to comment or add anything there, or if they have any thoughts around any of that.
Well, thank you, Wendy. I mean, I think that was absolutely brilliant, and I'm sure there probably will be some questions. It was interesting. A lot of what you're saying, I think, relates to topics that we're going to come on to later this afternoon. For example, engaging with parents and alumni at the moment, and then obviously the big subject of digital advocacy. I've got a quick question. I hadn't heard of Discord, but is Clubhouse something that you've started to use? I seem to be hearing quite a lot about Clubhouse.
Well, I've heard about Clubhouse as well. And actually, when I went to find the login for it, it was only, I got an alert saying it was only in beta testing so I don't know if anyone else is using Clubhouse, but I was kind of, I don't know, there was a little block on it and it said I was in beta mode and that I think they were just testing it out. Clubhouse is invite only.
Wendy, if I can chip in there, Wendy, I don't know if you can hear me, it's Rachel. I believe it's actually up and running, but one sort of major flaw, I think, is that it's only available for iPhone technology. So if you're on Android, which rules out about 40% of the population, you can't actually use Clubhouse. So it is gaining traction in the education sector, I think, but if you're on Android, not yet.
Yeah, that's a bit of a limitation there, isn't it?
Absolutely, yeah.
So Discord, I think, sorry to Alicia to go back. It's not, as far as I can tell, it's not being used in education sectors. But my son, it's just one of those things where I feel like if you have some understanding of it and you're able to be creative about how you use it, it might just be a nice little way into the market. I have to say, when I mentioned it to my marketing club, because they're the same age, they looked really shocked that an adult even knew what it was. So it did make me feel like so I didn't say, I only heard my son talking about it, but it's what they use. He seems to use it when he should be learning as a way of messaging people, because it's not WhatsApp. You can't see when they're online on it. And because so few people are using it in kind of an adult sense. Yeah, it's less monitored. Again, I don't know if that's a public publicity for it or not. But yeah, it's Clubhouse is one that it's interesting. I wonder, Rachel, what they're thinking about doing with that from their limitations. And if anyone was on the call yesterday with about Photo Ghost, was it Unisys? I think Charlotte and I were listening to it together. This idea of Photo Ghost to me feels like something that's going to become quite popular quite quickly. And that's the ability to take photographs on your phone, but they aren't saved to your phone. They go directly to a secure cloud safety, like kind of holding area in the cloud. So your phone isn't holding images of children, which to me feels like a real game changer. It also connects to social, to your own school social. And there's an AI element. So if you have children with photo consent restrictions, it stops them the picture being used if they're in that image, which I mean, these are kind of things that are that's a real game changer for school marketing, I think.
Definitely. Wow, that sounds quite interesting, Wendy. Thank you. Well, thank you so much for that. It really is good to hear from somebody who has been living and breathing the marketing of Abbots Hill over the past few weeks. And I think it's really interesting as well to see how so many of the topics you touched upon are things that we're going to be looking at later this afternoon in more detail. So thank you for coming along. The good news for everybody now is we've got a short break so we can all get away from our screens, and we will see you back here at, let me double check, 11 o'clock for copywriting. But thanks again, Wendy. And I see somebody has given you a virtual clap of the hands. So
thank you.
Maybe that's the way forward.
I like that. Thanks very much for that. I appreciate it.
Great. Well, we'll see you all.